Next up, we have Truth Initiative and Mojo Supermarket. Truth has worked successfully for decades to fight youth cigarette and tobacco use. Thanks to Truth's efforts, youth cigarette use dropped from 23%, hey Alfie, in the year 2000 to 2.3% in 2021. But more recently, a new epidemic entered the market, vaping. In just 2 years, youth vaping has skyrocketed. But Truth has always found ways to reach young audiences by cementing the brand in culture. Whether it's dropping body bags, hi Marla, at the doorstep of tobacco industry, forewarning a world with no cats or cat videos, or more recently launching a fake vape company called Depression Stick. In this world premiere of a session, so please find a seat and get ready, Truth Initiative CMO Liz Kenny will join Ryan McDaid, Head of Strategy at Mojo Supermarket, to discuss the elusive goal of relevance with a constantly shifting audience. Get under the scenes scoop of Mojo Supermarket's first major campaign for Truth Initiative that was awarded the 2023 Grand Effie. Please welcome to the stage.
Please welcome Ryan McDaid and Elizabeth Kenny.
Thank you guys. Just full disclosure, this is the first day that I'm out in the wild after having a newborn. So if I come off like, I'm glad you clapped, because if you didn't clap, that would be very bad for society. But amazing, yeah, we're excited to take you through this work. Grand Effie winning work for this year, good work for a good cause, and talking about the Truth Initiative.
Yeah, and we're so honored to be up here presenting this amazing work to you, not only because we won the Grand Effie for Most Effective Behavioral Campaign, but also because it took a lot of strategic bravery between Truth and Mojo Supermarket to get here. So Truth, if you don't know it, well, actually show of hands, how many people remember, I think you were all above our demo, how many people remember seeing those anti-smoking ads when you were a kid? All right. We got about 70% awareness. That's what we strive for. So Truth was formed in 1999 as a result of the lawsuit that 46 states, Washington, D.C., and a bunch of territories had against Big Tobacco. And they sued Big Tobacco for the costs associated with illnesses that were caused by tobacco, as well as for marketing to kids. And out of that lawsuit came a bucket of funds to start the Truth Initiative, and we were on our way. And our mission has always been to steer young people away from nicotine and the horrible addiction that it causes. And what that has meant throughout our life as an organization, a nonprofit organization, is that we have been the David to Big Tobacco's Goliath. We have over 150 times smaller budget than they do to make our message effective. They spend billions of dollars every year. So to accomplish our mission, Truth has had to be brave about our messaging. And it all started back in 2000 when we dropped 1,200 body bags at the doorstep of a major tobacco company. I'm seeing some nods. You remember that maybe? And that sort of set us on our path to really make a statement about what Big Tobacco was doing and why kids should stay away from it. And those 1,200 body bags represented the number of people who died every day due to tobacco. We then followed that with Gen X on a campaign called Catmageddon, where we told kids a fact that cats are 2 times more likely to get cancer if there's somebody smoking in their house. And God forbid we all lose our cats and cat videos. So I was glad to see some cat videos up here this morning. And then we spoke to the very optimistic millennial generation and said, you know what? It is your job now to finish it. And we had a campaign called Finish It that said, be the generation that stops smoking. And by that point, as we just heard, the smoking rate had dropped among youth from 23% to just a little bit above 2%, where it remains today. But then the game changed. In 2018, vapes entered the scene. And they were positioned as a safer cigarette and as a cessation tool for adults who were already smoking. But when Juul came on the market shortly thereafter, after that first vape was introduced, they were not positioning it as a cessation tool, and they were not marketing to adults. Their product was as sexy and sleek as an Apple product. They introduced their vapes in all sorts of fun, fruity flavors that sounded like candy. They had free product go out to a whole bunch of influencers who were clearly influencing youth, people like Leonardo DiCaprio, DJ Khaled. And then they also just sort of continued to talk to people about it being the safer cigarette. If you watch, there's a Juul documentary that is going on Netflix. Oh, you say, okay, I'm gonna nod over here, October 11th. And if you watch that, you will see in that documentary that Juul actually went into elementary schools and middle schools and told people Juul was safe.
They had them write essays about it. They did like an essay competition, scholarship competition. They bought ads on Nickelodeon, like they did ad buys on networks for children. It's it's pretty insidious.
And so what happened was that the vaping rate amongst youth then shot up to be even higher than the cigarette smoking rate. It got to 27.5% at its peak. And when we did a study as Truth Initiative, we found out in 2018, even though they'd only been on the market for a year, that most kids who were aged 15 to 24, 63%, did not know that Juul contained nicotine. And so they were completely, misrepresenting what they were, and kids really didn't understand it. So that meant then that we had to reapproach what we thought we'd almost successfully done. We thought we'd accomplished our mission. We had gotten cigarette smoking down to less than 5%. And now this thing called a vape was in the marketplace. And so we had to change our mission to be about denormalizing vaping and normalizing quitting, because you now had more than a quarter of kids actually vaping. And we brought in Mojo Supermarket to help. And so what we did was we started with a bunch of truth documents that we had. We had done things on the Gen Z generation. We gave Mojo our research on our brand equity, and we had already done a vaping segmentation study. But Mojo took it even further.
Yeah, we really built on it. And I think one thing that I'm super passionate about with my strategy department is getting into the comments section. So we got into Instagram, we got into YouTube, we lived in the comments section, we communicated in the comments section, we listened on Discord where there were whole conversations about vapes, and then from there we built our own panel. And so it wasn't just for research, we kept that Gen Z panel along for the entire journey. So to help us get insights, but then also to gut check work, and to make sure that our messaging was going to resonate all the way up until the very end. And I think that making sure that it speaks to and resonates with young people starts with talking to them directly. And so that was a big piece of, I think, what made this extremely successful and extremely authentic. Green button.
I think this was you.
Oh yeah, working with our partners at Truth, like all strategists in the room know this. We love RTBs. We're like, holy shit, give me all the RTBs. Because in there, you're gonna find tension to do a compelling campaign. Truth had no shortage of RTBs. Everything from vapes being filled with toxins and chemicals, overloaded with addicting nicotine. One cartridge contains 2 packs of cigarettes. It wastes money. You can add up all the money that young people waste. It destroys the environment. It doesn't biodegrade. And even the way they target children with ads. But I think the bravery came in looking at all of this and realizing that you can't overload your audience with all these RTBs. We couldn't say everything because they were going to walk away with nothing. So we had to find the one thing that was really going to resonate with them. So we did a study, and what we found is that of all the things that Gen Z has to worry about, which is a ton of stuff, global warming, school shootings, a government that's failing them. Vaping was really, really low on the list, like almost second to last of things that they cared about. But what they didn't know is that the number one thing that they cared about, their mental health and suicide prevention and just sort of mental well-being, was deeply being affected by nicotine. And so we saw a huge opportunity there. If we could associate nicotine with mental health, we could cut through and get Gen Z to care. So they didn't realize that vaping was playing this role in the mental health crisis. We found stats going into medical journals talking about how vaping can increase feelings of depression and anxiety. We talked with influencers and found that they were struggling with addiction themselves, and they called it addiction, and they used the word addiction, and that was extremely powerful. And then we also looked at what the industry was doing. This was during the pandemic, and brands like Puff Bar and Juul were marketing to teens, talking about how vaping was a good mental health break. It was a good way to sort of decompress and to get away from stress. So they didn't know that nicotine actually was amplifying a lot of those feelings and making it far worse. And that's where we saw our big opportunity. We talked with young people, the Gen Z panel that I talked about, and what they lit up. They got fired up about this stat. They said it felt new, it felt urgent, it felt super actionable, and this is when we knew we were onto something. So that led us to our insight. Our insight is that teenagers don't care about vaping, but they're dead serious about mental health. They don't realize that nicotine can amplify depression and anxiety. And that led us to our overarching strategy of outing nicotine as the silent contributor to teen mental health issues, showing teens that what's inside it and who's behind vapes is messing with their mental. So that became our overarching strategy, and it led us to a creative platform. So working with our creative teams, we came up with this platform. It's messing with our heads, and it had two objectives, and these were tied extremely closely to Truth's KPIs, because Truth had found that the biggest things were you needed to raise awareness for what was going on with either cigarettes or nicotine, and then you also had to make sure that the industry was being held accountable and seen as responsible. So our two-pronged approach was show that nicotine is messing with their heads, and show that the industry is messing with their perception of what is safe and normal. So, chapter 1, what did we need to do? We knew that we needed to get culture to call a vape exactly what it is. We had to get that out there. We had to make that connection between nicotine and mental health as quickly as possible. It hadn't been said yet. It feels obvious in retrospect. At the time, no one was saying it. So what we did was we came up with a single sentence that really summed it up, and that was depression stick. And we acted, in a totally rational way. We started a fake company and made a fake product and acted as though this was a real thing. So we launched Depression Stick like it was a real vape brand. We fabricated products. We bought at a home in Times Square. We bought billboards near high schools. We did social.
Why be happy when you can be sad? Depression Stick can amplify feelings of depression and anxiety. Depression Stick. Learn more at depressionstick.com.
We launched this as though it was real, totally blind, no branding, sent you to a website called depressionstick.com. We ran it in pre-roll on YouTube. We worked closely with our partners at TikTok. Shout out to them, they were amazing. They helped us with a For You page takeover, and everyone thought this was a real brand. It drove an insane amount of visits to the website because people wanted to know, is this thing real? Is this actually a vape? Are they actually advertising depression and anxiety? So we made sure when we built our website that it looked like a product website. It was supposed to feel like an Apple product. You get to see the vape, it comes apart. As you scroll down through it, it subtly gives you facts about how messed up this thing is. It tells you all the bad stuff that's in it. It tells you all the bad stuff it's going to do to you. And it does it with like a celebratory tone, the same way that the industry was doing. So that was our fake landing page. And then to follow it up, we sent hidden cameras out. We created a fake CMO, a guy named Craig, and we sent hidden cameras out to see if the culture that had normalized vaping would have the guts to call it what it is. So we sent Craig to convenience stores, to influencers, to lobbyists in Washington, to advertising agencies, and had him pitch Depression Stick. Would a convenience store carry a product called Depression Stick? Would influencers advertise a product called Depression Stick? And the results are both not surprising and very funny.
I helped create a vape that makes depression convenient. What is this?
My new product, the depression stick. Nicotine can amplify depression and anxiety, so I'm trying to sell some depression. Anyways, sadness, stress, all those vape pens that you're carrying, I mean, they pretty much do the same thing as mine. I'm just being honest with my marketing.
What are you talking about?
You don't want to sell depression?
No, we gotta get out of here.
You're a
Yeah.
loss.
It was wild. I mean, Mo was going in like a van, hidden in a van in a parking lot outside convenience stores, and it was like throwback to punked days, I guess. The next thing we did was we brought in influencers to help spread the truth, and we challenged them with the same thing. Would they be sponsored by a brand called Depression
Bring
Stick?
in the influencers. Today, I'm auditioning influencers to promote Depression Stick online.
What is it?
It's a vape pen. Like all those vaping companies, the nicotine can amplify feelings of depression and anxiety.
So it purposely makes people sad?
Talk to your followers.
So look, yo, I can't do that, yo.
This is a sick thing.
Other influencers have.
I don't care.
And they were great sports about it. All of them helped us to amplify the campaign and continue to post about it. They really showed up for the brand. So the results were undeniable. I think we felt really proud. Like we sent 500,000 unique web visits in the first 24 hours. The term depression stick started trending. We saw people making their own TikToks talking about the marketing. The word came up a ton in social. And then media picked up the story. The Wall Street Journal did an awesome article about how the anti-vaping campaign highlights mental health by pitching depression sticks. So that was chapter one. And the question was, okay, how do we follow this up? Like we did a big head fake. We totally threw all these teenagers off, got their attention. What's next? We didn't just want to keep saying depression stick over and over because people would glaze over. So what we did was we thought about what needs to happen next. And the big thing, once people associate nicotine and mental health problems, the biggest thing is the behaviors around it. What are the behaviors that normalize using a vape all the time? So the biggest one that we found in doing research was around vaping being a coping mechanism for stress. So we wanted to show teens that vaping isn't a stress reliever, rather it's a breath of stress air. So we did the next logical thing and we launched a fake meditation for you to do with your vapes. And this is an example of that work.
Stressed? Anxious? Your vape can make you feel stressed? Anxious? Your vape can make you feel stressed? Anxious? Your vape can make you feel anxious. Vaping nicotine can increase feelings of stress and anxiety. So if you're vaping to help your stress, you could be caught in a loop and making it worse. Vaping nicotine. It's a breath of stress air. See for yourself. breathofstressair.com.
And we followed up that piece by
Breathe
doing
in and wonder,
social.
is this helping? Breathe out. Now you should feel much worse. Vaping nicotine can actually increase feelings of stress and anxiety. Let's call a vape what it is. It's a breath of stress air. See for yourself. breathofstressair.com. Breathe in and wonder, is this helping?
Yeah, and then what we did with our in-house creative team, because there were still so many kids who now were addicted, was we wanted to start to normalize quitting. So we went out and found a broad array of different kids who were ready to go on their vape journey. We gave them a cessation program that we had developed that was for youth, created by youth, 24/7 texting program, completely anonymous and free. And we said, will you try to quit with This Is Quitting, vlog your experience, and then we cut those ads into, we heard this morning from our Google friends, long form, 30 seconds, 15 seconds, 6 seconds. Yeah, so we had all of that content. And that really helped to begin to normalize quitting while the Mojo work was really encouraging kids not to pick it up in the first place. So this is Parker. This was one of our most...
My name is Parker, and this is quitting. If I realized that vaping nicotine would have made my anxiety and my depression symptoms worse, I would have asked for help sooner. Need help quitting vaping? Text Ditch Vape to 88709.
And then what we also did was when anybody saw, either those ads or the Mojo ads, they were sent to a landing page where we gave them more resources. Because we believe the truth that if you give kids the facts, they will make their own appropriate decisions. But we also don't want to just hammer them with, okay, don't do it, here's why. We want to say, okay, what can you do instead? So we offered them up, This Is Quitting, on the right there. The other thing that we did was we partnered with the Crisis Text Line, which is an organization any of us can call when we're having mental health crises. And that resulted in over 5,300 conversations from kids who found the Crisis Text Line through us with them, and actually 10 suicide avoided attempts. So we're really proud of that. And then we partnered with Breathwork, who was a very new vendor at the time, who was doing breathing exercises to try to reduce stress and anxiety. And we found that for the kids who signed up with This Is Quitting and with Breathwork, they had a 30% better success rate at actually quitting and staying off vapes long term.
So let's talk results.
Stressed? Anxious?
I just let that play until the end. I think what has been so successful about this platform was that truly it's had a North Star strategy that has run across the entire thing. So our strategy, outing nicotine as a silent contributor to teen mental health issues, is as relevant as it was during the pitch 2 years ago as it is today when we just launched a new campaign earlier this week. So that is still our North Star. It is what we always return to. And under that, our platform, it's messing with our heads with its two objectives. That is always what we go back to. So once you have that strong foundation, you are able to do a wide range of work. And I think the work that we did, we tried to make sure we were hitting multiple aspects of this problem, from getting culture to call it what it is by creating language that teenagers could use, like depression stick or breath of stress air. These are things that we knew that from our Gen Z panel, teenagers would repeat and they would say to each other. They would denormalize the habit of vaping by saying like, no way, man, that's a depression stick, or like, vaping's a breath of stress air. We wanted to bust myths, so anything that has normalized the behavior, we wanted to go head first at. We wanted to provide real resources by partnering with organizations that could do it, and then tell real success stories. So I think it's so important that young people don't feel alone on this journey or feel shamed for having picked up this habit. It's not their fault. This isn't a teenager problem. This is a cultural problem, and they're not alone in it. So telling real success stories was a key part of that. And this is our final slide.
Yeah, so the work is really working. After It's Messing With Our Heads campaign started, we saw a statistically significant perception shift in young people's attitudes towards the industry. And that number is driven mostly by vape companies' lie and kids' agreement with that. We also saw this huge shift in the awareness that vaping can cause these mental health issues. That was new news to them at the time. And in our campaign that we just launched a couple days ago, we have delivered another piece of new news, which is that it can mess with your sleep. And that's another one that kids are really, that's grabbing their attention because they didn't realize it. We had huge signups for This Is Quitting. Since we started This Is Quitting, we have had 640,000 young people enroll. That is the biggest youth cessation program in the United States. And in fact, it is bigger than all of the other youth quit lines put together. So we're very proud of that. Thank you, thank you. And then the other number we're very proud of is, back at our Truth offices in DC, we have about 40 people who are PhDs and scientists, and they just, do all these studies and crunch numbers all the time. And they were able to show in an article that was just published, a peer-reviewed article that was just published a couple of months ago, that during the time when this first aired, starting with Depression Stick, we have helped 1.3 million young people, because we can correlate that to their awareness of this campaign. And we've helped them either not pick up a vape in the first place, slowed their use of it, or decide to quit. So we're incredibly proud of this work, and we know it's working.
Thank you. Oop. We have 2 minutes for questions.
Questions.
Well, what's next? Yeah, so we have, I guess we can give a little preview because it just started on Sunday. When we went to Mojo and said, this has been working so well, how do we do even better than this? And the sort of the through line is that after debunking the myth that vapes can help relieve your stress, what we now want to do is almost make it a little bit more evident of what those vapes are doing and how they amplify the stress and anxiety. And Mojo came up with this amazing campaign called Toxic Therapy from Your Vape. And we got Chris Parnell of 30 Rock and SNL and Rick and Morty, and particularly his portrayal of Dr. Leo Spachaman on 30 Rock, where he sounds like the most authoritative, incredibly incompetent doctor. That's who our therapist is. And so it's also animated, which I think the animation actually helps bring all kids in. You know, we try to use diversity in the kind of kids that we're picking, but still I think when it's animated, it makes it more welcoming to everyone. And what happens in these spots is it opens up on a kid having a stressful moment in a scenario that is so easily accessible to everyone. So the first one that's on the air is called Texting Anxiety, and you open on a young man who's like, they're not texting back. You know, he's clearly texted his friends. They haven't texted back, and the vape is sitting on his coffee table in front of him, and it pops up, and it turns into our toxic therapist. And voiced by Chris Parnell, he says, go with that. You know, what could be happening? And it begins to amplify his own stress and anxiety. And the kid goes, well, they're all hanging out without me. And the toxic therapist says, let's keep going. And so there's a whole series of spots like that and the testing that we just got back, we still have to wait for in-market results, but pre-market said that this was actually performing even better than what we've done with Depression Stick and Breath of Stress Air. So we are super happy.
That's time. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All I can say is I'm really proud of this work and I didn't even do it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.